They don't like the maintenance. They're upset about something. That's the number one reason. And yet we spend all this time on all these amenities and everything else thinking that's going to solve our turnover problem. And often it's the bad maintenance.
The maintenance team reports directly. It's like a parallel structure. Not as a like in-house vendor, but it's a parallel structure. They report directly to a regional maintenance director.
So the question I have for you is, how do you ensure that they're not just constantly calling these third-party vendors instead of actually doing the work themselves on the site? Are they being efficient? Do they need more training? Most of the time it's more training, and sometimes it's bad planning.
I think there's hours every day that are being wasted by technicians going back and forth every single day, picking up a key, returning key, get more keys to from the office. Huge liability, because you also have to have like a
I was thinking how you could create something that would really hit a broad audience appeal, not just a narrow niche. Like maintenance supervisors aren't necessarily the ones that are going to be reading. They're not necessarily buying the book. Some of them do, but not all of them. So the ones that want to advance might. But where's the biggest misunderstanding in the whole business? I think it's related to managers don't understand what maintenance does. There's a huge gap between, I don't know what he did. He's supposed to do how many work orders? I don't know. Why does it take you so long?
Yeah, but they can't really honestly gauge, because if you've never done it, right, you could still be very educated on just by having someone like purposely telling you various things, right? So you understand the variables. But if you're a manager and you just make assumptions, right? Say, what does this take so long? But you don't actually understand the process. You don't understand certain things, could take longer than others. It's impossible for you to judge. It's just like for me to look at you and say, I'm going to rate you as an investor. How you do investments? I have no idea. Like
it's true.
How to buy, how to underwrite multifamily. And it's just like, I'll be some boss of yours or like someone that says, well, an auditor, right? To audit. Okay, so I'm going to look at your books right now and see if you're a good underwriter or not. I might be able to study on my own, still doesn't make me an authority when it comes to, hey.
Yeah, that's the way the industry is wired.
It truly is.
Yeah, all the property manager reports to the maintenance supervisor reports to the property manager.
Yeah.
So and they're responsible and they hold them accountable if they're not getting, and a lot of it's trust. You have to trust that your supervisor is good. And it's also compared to what? So if you're a manager and you've been in the business, you're saying, well, it took my last maintenance supervisor, 2 hours to fix something like that. It's taking you 5. Are you loafing? Are you doing something you shouldn't do? Or are you actually, something's more difficult? Maybe something went wrong. It was more difficult. So what do we have, other than benchmarking relative to a past performance? How do we know?
I think there's 2 ways in which we would know. Either to have extra support, corporate maintenance support would be to where, the manager says, I can't really tell if my guy is doing this right or not. And the corporate support comes in and says, we will audit and we'll let you know, right? Learning on their own for managers, but I think this is really an unrealistic expectation because it takes years to understand this. And a lot of the maintenance professionals really, even when they move up the ladder, they don't understand it very well. Those are 2 ways. The third way is to change the reporting to where, and I've seen this done at some companies, I'll love your thought on that. By that, I mean the maintenance team reports directly. It's like a parallel structure, not as a in-house vendor, but it's a parallel structure. They report directly to a regional maintenance director. And that part of the business is ran separately. They don't report directly to the property manager.
I can think of another way that AI will help. The AI can assess and analyze and understand the actual key metrics far better than any human could. And once it can understand the variables, for example, the AI could go in and say, okay, well, they had to get this many parts from inventory because it'll know, because I'm envisioning a future where there's cameras. You know from your inventory what was actually brought. So they brought this solenoid, they brought this capacitor, so they were doing this inside of the actual, and perhaps you have the glasses that further ties that data in, almost like a police officer. Now, that's Big Brother's watching you. But what that would do is that would create accountability and probably also training, great opportunity to train people, because you could use those glasses to put onto a brand new person and say, I want you to fix this AC. And it's going to show you and talk to you in your ear and say, no, this is what's wrong with it. And it knows from past experience on this property what's typically broken on this particular model and how to repair it. So the AI is actually teaching them to fix it. It's also measuring them, which would be fascinating as well.
As far as Big Brother, I have some thoughts here on Big Brother. Like, we as human race, we gave up privacy for convenience long time ago. Mm-hmm. And to think that we're going to get some of that back, it's like, this is probably the best we're going to have it ever today. Right. So in the future, it's not going to reverse. It's just going to go further that direction, the Big Brother direction. I think, what we have now available, like the technology, the surveillance at the property level, something that is considered pretty standard. Back like 20 years ago, people will freak out about it. And now everybody thinks like, oh, this is a necessity.
Yeah. This reminds me, many years ago, I was trying to break down the core components of property management. And when you break it down into its core, on the property manager side, there's leasing the units, right? And there's renewals. Those are the two primary drivers in the business. So then I looked at maintenance and I said, well, what do? Well, they turn units and they do work orders. Now, there's a third, which of course would be a work order that's common, like maybe it's a common area or it's preventive maintenance, but it's still a work order. So then I said, okay, if those are the key things they do, then how do you measure it? So then I said, what if each property had its individual, it's basically a benchmark. So we know that this is the average time it takes to fix an AC. This is the average time to fix a plumbing. And we actually had it graphed out and we knew what it was. So then we could know about the outliers. So then when we hire a new maintenance guy, well, we know what the prior outliers were. We could immediately say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's taking way longer. He may not be a loafer. He may not know what he's doing. Then we also tie it back to the callbacks. So then if we could do the same thing with the management side on renewals and those types of things. So figuring out and drilling into that detail, I thought was a fascinating way to figure it out. Now, at the time, I saw different companies try to do this with the Palm Pilots and that, but the technology was not there. And creating those individual fingerprints, because every deal is different. You'll get like a 1970s deal versus a 2022 deal construction. Totally different maintenance profile in terms of the repairs, the type of problems they have, and how long it takes. So if you're trying to use the standards from the 2020 building to the 1970s deal, it's apples and oranges.
Absolutely.
Or if it's up north versus down south, it's a different type of repair, a different type of requirement. There could be union standard. Who knows what that might be? So IRM has something called the expense benchmarks. Have you seen this benchmark guide? They put it out?
I haven't.
Okay. So what it does is it shows you for each property, high rise, mid rise, walk up, it shows you what the expenses should be for gas, for utilities, electricity, or maintenance, whatever it might be. And it's broken into a very detailed thing and it gives you ranges. Well, I was saying, okay, take it one step further, productivity of how long it takes you to do an actual job. So how long does it take to do a work order for AC? What type of AC repair is it? You changing a filter or are you actually replacing something? So imagine if you had that data set and then you were able to benchmark your team to the actual data set. That would be fascinating. I would like to know, are they being efficient? Do they need more training? Most of the time it's more training and sometimes it's bad planning. It's bad coordination. And we know that maintenance often gets called off to do other things by managers. And the manager sometimes stands in the way of getting the maintenance guy to be productive because they're supposed to have a meeting in the morning and talk to him and say, here's what the biggest priorities are. And then they go out and they start working on it. And then someone else calls and then they yank them off of that. And then they run to go do that. And the next thing you know, well, why didn't we get everything else done? Because you keep calling me and yanking me off of things. I've seen this again and again. Have you seen this?
It's kind of the way we operate in multifamily. Like, you're shocked when you don't see this. But I would love to break down the tasks, what's happening, right? From, let's just say, 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m., like point zero. Let's just take T1 when the day begins for the maintenance team and just kind of analyze step by step what's happening and then talk about how could this be done better, right? To brainstorm on this. Yeah. Let's just say that we start at 8 o'clock, we work 8 to 5, and the first person that comes to the office is going to be, I would expect, a service manager 15, 20 minutes before the opening, so he does an audit on a service request and make readies and establishes the priorities for the team. So when the team comes in at 8 o'clock, you have a quick 5-minute meeting. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Do you need anything? Do you have anything to share with the group? You're given the opportunity. And then after that's been out of the way, you start saying, these are your tasks, your tasks, your tasks. given that this is kind of like, let's just say T1, how everything starts, what can we do differently or better to like make this process more efficient?
Well, I think one of the things definitely is using AI to triage. I think some of the apps out there do this for them to actually, when they come in, they have a report. Each team member has it, and it shows them, these are your priorities. This is what's important today. And by the way, here are the parts you need. Because I see this a lot. They go start working on something and they realize, oh, I'm missing this part. Well, they should have anticipated they might potentially run into that problem. And another issue you have with maintenance is they go in to do one work order and they see another issue. Now, some people, if it's small, they just go ahead and fix it. Or, if they report it, if it's a larger one, and then of course it could be added to the mix. But we definitely have seen that. I think the actual automation and coordination of that's important. The scheduling, obviously, of vendors is another time-consuming thing, making sure the sequencing is done right. So sequence is just as important when it comes to maintenance. Who goes into the unit first? Who does the inspections to make sure things are done? Which turnkey is coming in? The cleaning guy comes in last. You got to make sure all these things happen in a sequence. And if they're not done correctly, then it causes someone else to have to come back and do it again. So it costs money and time. And we all know that the longer the deal sits waiting for the move-in, the more it costs the owner. So we want to try to minimize that time sitting. And then we also know the number one reason, controllable, why people leave an apartment complex is they don't like the maintenance. They're upset about something. That's the number one reason. And yet we spend all this time on all these amenities and everything else thinking that's going to solve our turnover problem. And often it's the bad maintenance. And by the way, when I say bad maintenance, the maintenance team may be great. They just may be untrained. They may have unrealistic expectations. Maybe they're understaffed.
Or bad leadership or no leadership.
Yeah.
Like no direction.
There you go. Yeah.
Like I've seen this, how many times did you walk one of your properties and you go to the maintenance shop and people hang out?
Yeah.
And if you're saying hi and, asking, hey, how do you guys, what do you guys do? Well, we're just waiting like service manager to tell us to do something. So now to go back a little bit to what you were saying with technology and AI, not only that, those things exist today, but it gets even better, right? You could set up profiles for each one of your maintenance techs, team members, and tell the system exactly what they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then the system will have those preset. Your service manager will never have to go to somewhere, print some work orders, go through them and distribute them. That's our window. There's no need for it. The system does that assignment based on each individual strengths and based on a workload. You could also do with a system set minimums. So if you're one of the techs out there today, and I set a minimum workload to be like 5 work orders, if you go down to like 4 pending in your queue, the system is going to push the next one onto you automatically based on your credentials, based on your capabilities. And then if that doesn't go for that, it's based on like what's left, because it could be like only one ticket left.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes to you. So again, like that's another piece of automation that it's possible today with technology that the service manager never have to worry about. Set it up. It's like one and done. Set it up and just let it rip. I want to tell you about our new sponsor, iRestify. Property managers, here's the truth. Happy residents stay longer, and clean properties create happy residents. That's exactly what iRestify does. They specialize in multifamily cleaning and maintenance services that keep your residents happy and buildings pristine. They handle everything from common areas to turnovers. iRestify provides fully vetted professional cleaning teams and uses its proprietary platform to remotely monitor, schedule, and manage cleaning and maintenance operations across property portfolios. You get proof of service, quality inspections, and resident satisfaction reports, all through one easy app. Visit iRestify.com to see why so many multifamily pros are switching to iRestify.
Okay, I've got something for you that definitely impacts every owner out there. When the maintenance supervisor or property manager make a decision to do work in-house versus outhouse, so bringing in outside vendors. So is it repairing the AC in-house or calling a third-party contractor at 10 times the cost? So the question I have for you is, how do you ensure that they're not just constantly calling these third-party vendors instead of actually doing the work themselves on the site?
I mean, there's ways to track with technology. Like you could make it to where first you will have to like do an assessment. Mm-hmm. So the first time around when a work order comes in with AC, you can't, you have to dispatch it to one of your team members unless you have zero staff.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But let's just assume that you have staff. So that should be the first, thing preset. And then there has to be like a mandate for whomever the ticket is assigned to that they troubleshoot. And then if they determine that this is something they can do, kick it back to the service manager. Service manager has two options, right? Either to like go and perform that work himself or dispatch it to someone else, a team member, or dispatch it to a contractor. How can we do that? Again, the system you could set alarms in the system. Every time there's someone that's like an AC or something else is dispatched to a vendor, or maybe every other time.
So like for example, you're familiar with your work app and some of the other AppWork, some of these
AppWork,
other.
yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way in that system where it'll let me know if a vendor's pricing is outside of the range? So an AC replacement is $6,900 expensive, or is it in range in this particular city, in this particular location? As an owner, I'm looking at these big bills saying, wow, that's expensive. Are they normally that much? Is there some way to say, hey, these are the parameters. If it's over this, they have to it kicks it up, gets approval?
So I think that's a piece that technology companies, to my knowledge, right? I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, technology companies are still working to figure out, like set maximums, like, do not exceed.
Okay.
Do not exceed, or type of deal. How do you dispatch? But I guess, first of all, the first step will be dispatching your vendor. They come out and they submit the bill. So that's going to be like a separate step in a process. They don't just come, replace the unit and send you the bill.
Yeah.
So there's going to be an oversight. They come, they do an assessment, and they say, the entire system replaced, and they submit that. And that actually goes to like an approval process. And I think you could catch it out there in approval process. Who approves, right? Is it the service manager approves? Does he have a limit? Does he go to community manager, regional manager, so on and so forth? And in approval process, whoever the person, the approver, you could like set up a do not exceed limit. And once that limit is being like hit, this triggers all sorts of like red flags, and people have to provide extra explanation. And maybe there is an explanation. A lot of times, like, look, I'm just making something up. There was a leak in a line set. This is a 35-year-old system, so we don't only have to change the inside and outside, but we also have have to change the line set. That's $5,000 extra. It makes sense. Everyone will say, yeah, that's like, it's understandable. Like, there's an extra cost. Yeah. It's not your typical.
Interesting. Back
to the daily tasks, right? So I think we covered this. We got it out of the way. Now technicians don't have to go and keep tickets in their hand. They gotta have all of it on an app, right?
That's right.
Which is dispatch. Some of the apps out there they're available, they're doing even translation. You could be like a native, for example, Spanish speaker. You could speak at the app and then dictating notes. The app translates that into English and it does your completion notes for you.
Yeah.
The piece that's like extremely important here is that you should consider some keyless system to your doors. I think there's hours every day that are being wasted by technicians going back and forth every single day, picking up a key, returning key, get more keys to from the office. Huge liability, because you also have to have like a very strict oversight. And although some of the like key track like systems they offer like online reporting, I've learned from experience that many of those systems aren't checked on a daily basis. And there's 5, 10, 50, 100 keys missing out of a 300-400 unit property. Yeah. That's an incredible level of liability. While you could have, I call them the hotel locks, right? And it could be a variation of that. First of all, the hardware is very sturdy, right? So it's exactly what multifamily needs, that commercial grade that's really resistant to abuse. Because let's just be honest, our hardware and our and our apartments could, it could suffer some serious abuse. If you're gonna buy something from Amazon and install on your residence doors, you better expect that there's gonna come with a lot of maintenance to it.
That's true.
And replacement. So I think that's another necessary piece that every owner should consider upfront or sometimes in a process when there's money available.
Yeah.
To save, like give their team members a little bit time back into their day, and they could focus actually on being at a property and hearing various locations just by not having to go back and forth from the office.
Got it. Interesting.
On the pricing, I wanted to say that this is another important piece that I haven't seen yet, right? We have procurement platforms like ERD Marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
It's something similar Upstack
Mm-hmm.
with RealPage and various other platforms where procurement is being done. But I'm yet to see one that's actually linked to this, to your phone. In other words, to be linked with the inventory at the shop, to have like an AI type inventory like Amazon does. Like this is technology that's available, right? Just so everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
The technology available at a Amazon warehouse is that each parts bin has a weight sensor. The sensor knows how much one piece weighs, and it could count how many pieces you have in that particular bin based on the weight. Once you pull 1 or 2 or 3 pieces out of the bin, the inventory automatically updates, right? And then once you set minimum inventory for each category, then the system could automatically order parts, reorder for you. So you're not going to have the whiteboard where everybody writes the parts that are needed. You're not going to be, surprised, whoops, we have an HVAC ticket and it's 5 p.m. on Friday, everybody's closed. We don't have a part, like something as simple as a capacitor. But then like you just ran out of parts. So that could be avoided. Yeah, all that inventory piece also tied into, and also assigning. So for example, if I'm Jimmy, right, and I go to replace the light bulb, I have a service request, but then I just so happen to, I get a jug of Freon and leave the maintenance shop with it, the AI cameras should trigger something and say, Jimmy just left with a jug of Freon. Nothing that's on Jimmy's queue says that, Jimmy has any HVAC related ticket. So this could be actually prevent like a lot of situations like waste, theft, things of that nature. Like you should be able to track this very precisely.
Does that technology exist as you know it right now in PropTech?
Not that I know it. But I think it'll be very useful for us to have it. Imagine, first of all, like we're not doing a great job at like tracking this. We have 90% turnover rates at the site level for maintenance. And that's incredible. You can't really build legacy knowledge. You can't keep up with all the inventory because you could barely keep up with the onboarding of new personnel. And by the time you onboard them, there's someone else leaving to the back door. And like it's an incredible hard situation that the teams are in. But if we were to have those solutions be like, those to me are meaningful solutions that could actually be built in, and there will be actually not something that I will say we just build for the sake of more features. Because I think a lot of products are suffering of that, right? They're building features after features after features, when in reality, you as an owner, you as an operator, you as an end user might need to use only 4 or 5, and they give you 50, right? So you pay for 50, while in reality it's like cable TV. You have 100 channels, you got to pay for the package, but then in reality you only maybe watch 4 or 5, 6 channels. This episode is brought to you by AppWork, the maintenance platform built by operators for operators. If your work order system is slowing you down, it's time for a change. AppWork helps you streamline operations, boost tech efficiency, and track everything in real time. Smarter tools, better results. Check them out at appworkco.com. So we kind of got that part out of the way right now. To everybody goes into the field and everything comes on their phone. They don't have to go back and forth to the office. The system tells them for the next 4 tickets that they have what parts they should grab from the shop. They're grabbing the stuff from the shop, put in a golf cart, and they just go around the property and they keep knocking out work order. What would be like in the process, let's just say during the day, throughout the day, they keep getting, new tickets as they complete all once. What would be like one other feature that a piece of technology should have incorporated to like help with efficiency? Let's just say that you have like a 20, 30 acre, very widespread property, 30 to 50 buildings. You have a team of like, 5 or 6. What would be one thing too?
I think we talked about this earlier, the disruption that happens from the office. And if the AI could actually properly stack and pick the appropriate tech to do the actual work. So let's say some new emergency repair comes in, and instead of them calling the maintenance supervisor, then him having to stop what he's doing, then him call his tech and doing that, if the AI would automatically say, hey, update, your next work order is going to be this. So it would actually re-automate them to do it instead of them being interrupted. Because every time you interrupt them, it's causing them to waste time. And also, another thing that would be interesting is when they leave, there should be common items that are in their cart or in their stack. And those items should then allow them to do those types of work orders because it's very common and they have those ready to go. So if those things come up a lot and they know, oh, we're going to have this problem, and they're ready to go, so they don't have to go all the way back to the shop. Every time they go back to the shop, you're losing 15 to 20 minutes.
Here's another idea here, geofencing.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to track each individual and based on where they have current work at the property, the system should dispatch new work in the same area.
Okay, that's interesting.
If it's a widespread property, right, and I'm
so
at building number 2,
at,
the system knows where I'm located precisely, and then the next incoming work order, it decides that it's gonna be me because it's like building 2, building 3 in that area versus sending it in the back of the property to someone that's at building 8. Now let's just say that the day is over. We're looking at what are some other things that we could or should be looking at when it comes to efficiencies or automation that you see we could add to the process to what we just talked about?
Not really sure. So maintenance, obviously, from my perspective as an owner, I hear about the problems. I hear about the issues. I hear about the things that are very expensive. I hear about problems. And a lot of times I'll see examples where things are overscoped by the vendors. So there'll be some problem or some common issue, and they'll call me out. I'll give you an example of this. There was a property that had a subfloor problem, and we had 2 or 3 different vendors look at it. We had an engineer come out and look at it, and they told me it was $250,000 to replace this subfloor. So I showed up, and I'm like, $250,000. The property didn't have the $250,000, so we have to come up with a solution. So I actually crawled underneath there with a camera and a flashlight and took pictures of the issue. When I came back out, I had the engineer and the contractor, and I said, well, there's one floor joist, main floor joist is broken. Can we not sister on to that existing one and not have to replace all the rest of them? Because I have pictures of all the rest of them. And they're like, well, yeah, you could do that. And it was like $20,000 versus $250,000. So they were going to scope the entire thing instead of actually fixing. I see that a lot in this business where we overscope things. But you talk about efficiencies. That's definitely a lot of lost money.
When it comes to daily tasks, Ken, I wanted to get your take on reoccurring stuff that happens on a daily basis. Where do you see some opportunity for automation there? I'm talking about maintenance still.
Preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance?
Yeah, preventive maintenance is a big one. We typically do that on a quarterly basis, and a lot of times it's you're hoping that they're actually changing those air filters. You're hoping that they're actually checking those smoke alarms and all that stuff. But I tell you this: if you don't have someone going back and spot checking to make sure it's actually being done consistently, sometimes it doesn't happen. That's been my experience. But in terms of more efficiency for maintenance with technology, here's a question for you. Whether or not the AI could actually help train them fix some common problem that they don't know. Because there's nothing more time consuming than the maintenance guy shows up and he doesn't know how to fix it. Then he has to call the supervisor. And what if the supervisor doesn't know how to fix the issue? Then they have to call a contractor. So if the AI could actually help them. Now, I've actually used, this is an interesting story. We have a property with this aluminum door, and it looks terrible. It's got corrosion of some sort on it. And, of course, you can paint it, but you have to take it off the actual thing and do all this stuff. So the contractor was trying to clean it with goof off and other things like that, and it looked terrible. And he didn't know what to do with it. So I took a picture of it, asked the AI, how do we fix this? And it gave me 6 different products, 6 different ways to actually fix it. And I was blown away. So that's a great example where you could use the technology if you see a problem, if you have an issue, especially if you don't, I didn't know how to fix it. It was a problem I didn't know. The contractor couldn't figure it out. The AI knew exactly what to do.
Something so simple but so efficient. Back to the preventive maintenance, I also think that, daily tasks like picking up grounds, zones, if the property is split in zones for grounds. checking the chemicals in a pool, cleaning up. That could also be part of the automation.
Sensors that could be set up, AI camera reading, knowing did they actually do the work? Are the pool chemicals correct? The Freon logs, anything that's a liability for the owner, that stuff could be automated so that we know it's actually being done. So you don't figure out lead-based paint additives. Anything this compliance is a huge issue in property management. And there's been multiple management companies that have been sued over this because it wasn't being done. And if you don't have the infrastructure or the proper systems or frameworks, then it cost you a lot of money. So anytime AI could take that responsibility on and do that, that would be an incredible time saver.
What do you think about the rule of one per 100? Well, you've been around for for longer than I have been, and I think other than just being like a anecdotal thing that's being passed on, nobody knows how to explain it. I don't know any extra information, so I love your thoughts on that.
So that's definitely been something I've heard when I got in the industry 30 years ago, and it's still kind of common usage. The issue I have, of course, is a 1970s deal versus a 2020 deal, totally different cost structure, and the amount of work orders required, the amount of maintenance required. A brand new deal might only require 1.5, whereas if you have an old deal, it might take 2.5 or 3, depending on how big it is. The other issue you have are the size of the grounds. I've seen it done where you have these 34-acre properties and you have 2 people and they're supposed to pick up the grounds, do all the work orders, do all that. It's just not feasible. So you have to add an additional person. So I think it really depends. And also up north, they do it totally different as well. They have supers in the buildings and it's just a totally different management structure.
Ken, it's been quite amazing to just go back and forth with you on like maintenance-related stuff. Mm-hmm. I think we're not having enough conversations between, I think, someone like me with maintenance operation background and an owner, right? Because we need to like sit down and just discuss these things. It's not my way or your way. Is how do we have those conversations and come up with the best solution, best practices for everything? I would love to leave this open and maybe do a series of maintenance myths. What are the myths that they've been circulating for a very long time in our industry? To give one example, being EPA certified, what type of knowledge that gives you. So we're just gonna leave it at that for everyone for right now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us, for joining me today, and I look forward to another series of that.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.